Hey everybody, if you like martial arts such as Kyokushin karate, kickboxing, glory, K1, boxing, MMA, ice hockey, etc., make sure to hit the like, share, subscribe button to the Drew Sperians podcast that's available on YouTube and all audio platforms. I just want to say thank you to a few supporters of the show as we aim to grow Kyokushin as Sosai's vision was wanted to raise the bar. First, KRT tips and tricks with Wesley Jensen and Darren Stringer, the largest online growing dojo. Martial Way blog with Scott Heaney and the show he does with Shian Terry Burkett, Real Talk, that just talks about Kyokushin and helping it get more eyes on the art. And for those who want to take it up as a sport for competing, Kyokushin Shuffle podcast with Sensei Patrick Pinto. And make sure to look for his book, to get his book Forever the Student ebook, where it picks the greatest minds of Kyokushin and other striking arts to see what gets them to click to and how they reach their potential, which is available online. And also make sure to subscribe to Pat's channel, the Kyokushin Shuffle, amazing Kyokushin channel. If you're an up-and-coming MMA fighter, you need a good management, make sure to reach out to Moments Management, where Nima Safapour and his team will teach you about the ins and outs of pro fighting to make sure you're leaving wealthy and healthy. And lastly, my supporters in Quebec, Kyokushin Boucherville and Karate Joanne Fournier, where Shian Pierre Cataford and his team with such as Sensei Joanne Fournier will teach your children or if you're an adult, the ins and outs of Kyokushin and why traditional martial arts are good. I always recommend them. They're amazing. And also Perez Karate of Shian Hugo Perez. If you're in Chateauguay, Quebec, and the other parts of Montreal, he's got an amazing association where with his dojos as he teaches everyone from all walks of life. So make sure to reach out to them because there's enough slices of pie to go around for everybody to succeed and grow. And with that, this is the Drew Sperians, the show that's 80% combat sports and 20% everything else. You know what? I'm going to change that. The show that's 90% Kyokushin and everything else as of today. I am your host, the handsome rambling Jew, a.k.a. the Hebrew Hammer, Drew. And with me today is Kyokushin royalty. This man, tracking this man down is like a mix of getting Batman or getting in touch with James Bond 007. He is Kyokushin royalty. He is the last of the original Uchi Deshis. He has fought in K1. He is a successful entrepreneur. He has been hosted by my friends Scott and Sensei Pat on their shows Kyokushin Shuffle and Martial Way. He is the one, the only, the unique, the amazing, the charismatic, the blue-eyed samurai, Sensei Nicholas Pettas. Sensei.
What an introduction. What hammer was that again?
The Hebrew Hammer.
The Hebrew Hammer. Oh, that's funny. I call myself a Dragon Slayer, and my brother calls himself the Death Hammer.
Sometimes you have to embrace your personality. The thing is, like, I think some of my family's gonna watch this and they're gonna say, you're being anti-Semitic to yourself. I'm not being anti-Semitic because at the end of the day, we only live once. You got to embrace the humor and stereotypes in the religion. I'm not trying to promote it, but I've just got to say, life's too short to take certain stuff seriously. So you gotta embrace your stereotypes. If you ever watch 21 Jump Street in the scene with where Ice Cube is like, embrace your stereotypes. So I took it to heart.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it, man. I'm all for that.
Exactly.
For sure.
You go by the Dragon Slayer. I mean, I say the Hebrew Hammer for the show, but if I compete, I guess I give myself the name the Nomad, but I'm sure my coach Mohammed Chik, who's going to watch this, he's going to say like the Nomad Hebrew Hammer. What the fuck are you talking about? I'm going to hear it from him right after. But yeah, I love him. So, but anyways, how's everything been for you? You're in Denmark right now. And what's the past year been like for you?
Well, like the rest of the world, there was this silly virus that started like getting out of control. Mm-hmm. And then so I basically, there was a lockdown in Japan for a while, which was the weakest lockdown ever in history. It's completely retarded because no one gave a shit, to be honest. And then they were just trying to make show because they were like up in the air about the Olympics. And I got to say, I felt it was retarded because nothing changed, and they had the Olympics and they had all the the coaches and everyone watching on the spectator stands while they were saying no spectators allowed. And it's just like, why don't you just let people in anyway? So, yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting year for me, to say the least. I think around the pandemic, we were we were advised to shut down because it's dangerous to have people sweating and breathing on each other. So I now, for the last 8 years, I've run and owned a CrossFit box in Tokyo called CrossFit Nishizabu. And so we shut down for almost 3 months, which was horrible.
Especially in Japan, considering that, it's not like you live in Europe where you're on land. Everything is imported. So imagine how much the cost of goods and services go up, especially with the shutdown and now with the supposed supply chain issues. So, I mean, it must have been a crazy time for those 3 months to adapt and try to get on. Were you offering Zoom lessons when Zoom started to become a thing?
No, I didn't. What I did was I actually did Facebook Lives.
Okay.
I made a Facebook page and started teaching classes online that you could follow. I actually opened it up for the public and said anyone can join.
Awesome. No, that's a really good way to do that.
Well, I think most people thought, fuck, we're losing all this money. We're gonna get screwed. We're never gonna, dig our way out of this hole that we're digging ourselves into right now. And I was also super nervous because, rent is super high. I have a lot of coaches that, I can't just like not pay them anymore because, they also need, their families to take care of and stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, this is a good time to have a lot of cash in the bank, or it's a good time to borrow a lot of money. So yeah, it was one of the two there. And then I thought that if you opened up for fitness classes for people, then people who were not members at the time might, tell their friends, hey, you're just sitting in your house. Why don't you join one of my classes? And so that would have been a good way of promoting the gym and seeing what we're actually about and doing. It wasn't that successful, to be honest, but it was okay. And then problem was halfway through it, some of the members that are paying for the service started complaining about that.
I see.
Because there's some of the members kept paying their memberships while we were closed. A lot of them shut down their memberships, put them on hold, or asked for returns and stuff like that. It was financially, it was an absolute mess. But at the end of the day, we got some grants from the government, and they gave out these really, really like 0% interest in loans. But it's just debt, right? It's just money for me. I'm not really that greedy, so as long as I know that the business can survive, I don't care about that. But yeah, we survived pretty well. And the classes, I felt like taught me something really interesting. It was that I have always believed that working out in your house is useless.
Yeah, I agree. I tried a Zoom karate class and I was like, after 10 minutes, after 10 minutes, I said, I'm done. Like this is useless. Yeah, I agree. Tenfold, 1,000,000%.
Yeah. But the funny thing about doing the classes, because I was kind of forced to do them every day. I would do like 6 classes a week, and then Sundays was like, do whatever you want. So from Monday through Saturday, I would run, it was about 45 minutes to an hour class. And I realized that you could get great workouts done in your house. But that's because I was motivated because there's other people on the other side of it. And I chose Facebook instead of Zoom because I didn't want to invade on any people's privacies. I thought that if I could just pump it out there and people could like message in, I could like kind of see the messages going on. And I thought that would be a better way because Japanese housings is very limited in space and stuff.
Yeah.
I just really didn't want to like invade on anyone's privacy, looking into other people's houses. So that's why I chose that thing.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, but man, then I started shooting videos for YouTube during that lockdown while we were closed. So I had like a really good routine. I would do the workout, go upstairs, shower, and then I would put on the cameras and film me cooking food, what I thought would be healthy to eat in a situation where you're not moving all around as much. And so 2 months later, I'd lost 10 kilos and I was in great shape.
Nice. Oh, I just wanted to also say a huge thank you to Sensei Joanne for connecting us. That woman, she is the reason why this conversation is happening. And so, I did tell you, we got to give Joanne like a major shout out. she's amazing. How did you and her meet? Because I mean, she was the one that she did the legwork. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I was the one that like we made that did like at the end of the day. Yeah, I know this thing. Well, it's your show. You're getting the guest. But I believe you need to have a very good circle around you in terms of like a support cast to help you do these kinds of things. So shout out to Sensei Joanne. I love you as a person, obviously, and amazing dojo with her and her daughter, Senpai Laurence. How do you know Joanne? Like, how did you guys meet exactly?
I don't know. I actually can't remember, to be honest. It's been so long. Like, it must have been more than 25 years ago. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those relationships that you have in life, and you've shared time at one point, and that's what it is for me. Yeah. Sorry to not have a really cool answer here, right?
It's no problem. No, it's like honesty is cool.
So many karateka from Kyokushin. It is not even funny, man. I have traveled the world with Kyokushin, and I've taught camps all over the place and been to dojos, and it's been quite an amazing first 25 years of karate in my life there.
What was like, hey, so I want to ask you about that because you say 25 years. So tell me about because I'm sure you've been to North America. Tell me about the time you've been to Quebec, like when you've been to Montreal, where I'm from. What's your greatest memory of being in Quebec, Canada, compared to the rest? Because let's be honest, we're kind of special.
Oh yeah. The strip club was fucking amazing. No. I mean, that was a joke. That's not actually a joke. I was completely blown away by that. But no. I have a very good friend, Robert Daou, that I've known for 30 years. And so he came to Japan the first time to watch the World Championships. This is the time when Andy Hug gets knocked out by Francisco Filio, by the way. 1991. So
his kryptonite, as they say.
Yeah. So we randomly, because he came with the Canadian team as a supporter and stuff like that. And he ended up loving Japan and coming back and living in Japan. And he's still in Japan. He's actually opened up a dojo in Japan called the Tokugen Dojo. So you can find him on Facebook. He's got a page there. Robert Daou, which is a Daoust, I think it's the way it's spelled. He's on my friend list. But yeah, I see him regularly still. And he was actually the one who was like, "Hey, you should come to Montreal and teach some classes." And so at the time, and this is going to be a little bit hard to explain for people who don't have had visa problems, but I was having visa problems in Japan because the dojo wouldn't sponsor me for a visa. So I started off with 3 years of visa, 1 year at a time, as what is it called? Cultural studies or something like that.
Some fancy term.
Yeah, but I only got that because Sosai was kind of vouching for me. And then I spent the next 2 years traveling back and forth every 3 months on tourist visas, which was not very good. But during that time, I needed to leave the country, and I think it was just after the World Championships, actually, or maybe after All Japan. I can't really remember. But I remember he's like, "Yeah, come to Montreal. We'll do some classes up in what's his name? The Shihan with the lion mane.
Andre Gilbert?
Yes, Andre Gilbert, yes. And he's like, set up some classes. We did some seminars. People chipped in some money, and it kind of paid for the trip. So it was really cool. I stayed at Robert's house, and we went snowboarding and had a fantastic week there. Yeah.
Awesome. Those are the good times, man. The golden era, as they say. There was like, that's the
cold, though.
Old?
Cold.
Cold.
It was like fucking cold. Like, trust me, it was minus 25 or something.
But Sensei, you're from Denmark, and the Scandinavia has these kinds of winters too, don't they?
No, not Denmark. We get -5 maximum.
Okay. I stand corrected. Maybe Finland, Norway, Sweden, and hey, speaking of which, I wanted to
up there in the north,
up there. I wanted to ask something about Scandinavia because I'm so curious. Like I asked recently another Shian, are there a lot of I mean, I'm sure there is like Swedish Kyokushin karateka, like Dolph Lundgren, but that's the big one. Are there any Finns up that like? Are there any Finns that I should be aware of or I could know about? Because Finland is like an interesting one. They're next to Russia. they beat Russia in World War II in the Winter War, and then there's like they're tough people. So I'm thinking, man, there must be some Kyokushin up there. But I wanted to ask you, are you aware of it any? Because I'm always curious about the Scandinavian.
Great question. I've actually never heard of anyone from Finland that has actually. So I've got friends in Norway that do Kyokushin. I've got lots of friends in Sweden doing Kyokushin, obviously in Denmark, but I've actually never heard of Finland. Maybe they do exist.
Maybe. Somehow. Yeah. So this is like, I'm putting a PSA out. If anyone in the Scandinavian circuit knows that Finland has Kyokushin, please reach out to me, or you could reach out to Sensei Nick, and then Nick will send me a message and be like, okay, I got some information. I'm just curious. It's just something I want to know. But Scandinavia, I mean, do you believe that because of Dolph Lundgren's celebrity and status, like, do you think that his status kind of helped grow the art in Europe when he says, yeah, I did Kyokushin and so forth?
No, okay. I don't think so. I don't. It's like saying, like, Michael J. White. What did he make Kyokushin big in America?
No.
Well, so there you go. Same thing. Okay. Same thing. I don't think that, those are the things that grow this. Let me call it a cult, because it is a cult, not in a bad way, but also it has cultish, aspects of it. But it is a couple of things, because it teaches mostly young people, good manners, strength and courage. And a lot of the fighters that actually become really good started off as kids that were scared or got beaten up. For example, in my story, I got beaten up and ran away, and I got scared, and I was like, no, I got to do karate. And it was random that there was a Kyokushin dojo there. But these are the kind of places that accumulates that kind of personality. And because of the strength that it teaches you, and because of the courage it gives you, it bonds the people around this spirit very strongly. And that's why I'd like to call it a cult.
In a good way, though. Same with religious movements. I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's I can understand where you're coming from. I see it with the same way with religion. But when you talk about religion, then like, you get backlash saying, no, it's not. Like, listen, it's a movement. If you want to call it a cult, it's a cult. It's how you interpret it at the end of the day, and that's your opinion. But at the end of the day, look where, in the end of the day, Kyokushin, you got to do uchi-deshi, and you were the first foreigner. Like, I was watching the interviews, and so tell me, you get to Japan, and you came from a very working class family, considering the circumstances of your childhood, and your mom had to help, had to find a way to help you, survive in Japan. You have any, if you don't mind me asking, you don't have any siblings, do you? You're an only child, or you're
No, I have an older brother.
Oh, okay. So he, at this time, like, was he also doing karate, or he was already like in university, or?
No, my brother's got a funny story. You can talk to him about that one day, but
sure, no problem. No.
So when I started, when I was just turning 15, I was both my brother and I, we were fat little kids. Mm-hmm. And I got like super, not skinny, but yeah, I got really skinny from training karate, like, because I was training every day, and I absolutely fell in love with it. But I also, in a very short time, like 6 months, I went from being really, like, not super fat, but very, like, chubby, to like super fit. And then my brother was, I'll be honest, he was very large at the time. And he saw that, and he's like, fuck, I can't do what he's doing, so I got to do something else. So he went to Muay Thai.
Interesting. So he went to the other.
Yeah. And then, 12 years later, or whatever, 15 years later, I'm the one asking him for advice on how to do, kickboxing.
Wow. That's awesome. So you go to Japan now. I mean, obviously, like, as I said, and how was it, you have to adapt to a new culture, because as you were saying on the other, on Kyokushin Shuffle and Martial Way, Japan, the culture is very, it's not, I wouldn't say isolationist, if that's the right term, but they're shy. So it's a mix of that, I guess. How did you adapt to learning Japanese? Like, what was your way to learn Japanese being a foreigner during this uchi-deshi period?
I just want to correct you on one thing before.
Oh, sure.
There were many other foreign uchi-deshis. Some of them, like Shion Howard Collins, was probably the first to stay for an extended period of time in the dorm. He never got a graduation certificate or anything. I wasn't quite sure if there was a graduation certificate at the time when he did it, but I think he stayed in Japan close to 2 years, and then he placed second in the All Japan tournament. which was the first foreigner ever to get that up, and that's an crazy like accomplishment at that time. And he teaches in Sweden. He's got a dojo not so far from here.
Okay.
And then there was a guy from South Africa who had incredible technique, and he stayed also for quite a while. I think more than a year. I forget his name now, but he also kind of just like, I don't know, faded out of the Kyokushin after that. And there have been other guys in and out. During my time, there was a French guy who stayed almost 3 years and almost became the first foreigner to graduate, except he was so lazy he got kicked out.
Really?
True story. Yeah. Then there's Judd from Australia, who graduates as the first actual foreigner to graduate from the Chase program. He started as a black belt, which is fine. He was already an Australian champion when he got there. So he was like way ahead of everybody else. I'm not quite sure he understood, or most of us as foreigners don't quite understand what the Uchideshi program was really about. Because I think there was so little information to be found anywhere. There was no internet for one thing, so it's all word of mouth. And I think that as a foreigner looking in on this dojo where they have the Uchideshi, where you probably think of a Shaolin monk training and you know, learning from the masters and becoming these, you know, karate kids, right? But the Japanese that join the Uchideshi program are sent there by their parents because they're punks and they don't know how to control them, and they need to put a backbone or put a spine into these kids.
There was like one guy that Xian Judd talks about in his book named the Barber, and he's like, and there's one like, yeah, and then there's another one that he said that was like, that hated the foreigners. Like he was a bully to them, and like he was always like, he always made sure to go. Yeah, I think it was Razorback. And then there was the Sandor, was one of the Hungarian one that like apparently made a point to be like, hey, it's like, don't. He's like, this might be your backyard, but you're not gonna humiliate me in your own backyard. And yeah.
Sandor is an interesting character. I've only met him a couple of times and spoken very briefly with him. But he lived also with Judd for a while there. And yeah, I just heard like amazing things about that guy. Then there's Nathan Ligo, who's got a dojo in North America, I think in Carolina. He just turned 50 and is going to compete again. And, you know, he posted something on Facebook. Nathan stayed for about 2 years, and then he went back to America and ended up getting a 2-year worth of the Uchideshi certificate, which I think is an amazing accomplishment in itself. He's literally dedicated the rest of his life to Kyokushin, so good on him. Yeah. But I mean, going back to your question, so not the first, but I was the last to graduate, because once I finished my graduation, Sosai passes away just a month after that.
I understand. Yeah. So thank you for correcting me there. Cause like that's what I meant to say, but I just had the wording mixed up. So thank you for that, cause I do appreciate it. So good on you there.
No, all those people definitely need a shout out.
They do. There's others that did it.
Then there was like, you know, Rodney Whippenar, who is training down with Judd Reed now in Australia. He's from South Africa also. He came and stayed with me, I think, for 6 months. Still very good friends. You know, there's a whole bunch of people like Wally Schnaubelt, who's I think he became a branch chief in Papua New Guinea. He was the original nomad of Kyokushin. He came literally to fight in the world tournament, I think, or was it? Let me think about this. No, he came at the world tournament and fought and competed, and that's when he started his journey across the world to go and train in the most amazing dojos. You should get him on the podcast, because he's an interesting character for sure. He ended up traveling all around the world and fighting in as many tournaments as he could, because he thought that, you know, to become the world champion, he should probably, you know, travel around the world and see what's out there and actually fight and train with them. And I think he stayed the longest in Brazil with Chico.
And this is during like when Glabe Feitosa's coming up, Francisco Fijo,
So we call him Chico, but yeah, Francisco Filho was the thing, right? He had just knocked out Andy Hug. So he was the man, right? Glaube was still young. It seemed like he was still young, but he had like just the most incredible talent, and everybody that looked at him just knew that he would go very far.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. Like, I mean, I like to tell the story, and my coach will come whenever he comes on. So now he's going to be put on the spot here. So Mohammed, whenever you're ready to come on, you'll tell the story. But I'm going to paraphrase a bit of it. So whenever in Kyokushin they bring back like the legends for like an honorary fight, just to kind of like make the tournament like bigger in Kyokushin. So
No, they do that? That's nuts.
well, like Glabe was brought back, I believe, and it was in 2014 as an honorary fighter, just to like. But this is like a Glabe that was like, just coming back for like because of his name and his status and the accomplishments. And my coach was about to fight him. But then obviously, you know how the brackets work. They're gonna change the brackets like right away. So then they put my coach against another person, and Glabe didn't fight him. But my coach is like, he's like, I wish I would have got that fight, just to say like I stood on the tatami with Glabe Feitosa.
Go ahead and look at my YouTube channel called The Tokyo Show and look for me commenting on the Nicholas Pettas versus Glabe Feitosa fight. And trust me when I say you do not want to step on the mat with that guy.
I heard he's a unit, an absolute mountain of a unit, and he's like, but he's like, and there's like a video, a 10-minute video with like that Euro techno music, but it's like so good, like of Glabe, like he comes in and he's just like in the dogi, like and like representing Kyokushin when K1 did the versus Kyokushin guys. Like I could watch that video every day. Like it's like my motivation to get back into training. But no, like, hey, you stood in there with them. You've seen Francisco. What was it like? Tell me, what was it like when?
Do you want to go back to the other question about
sure.
Because I never answered it. How it is to be there.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, we were just jumping there. So
it's okay to jump, but yeah, if you want to go back and hear about it, how is it to go in a foreign country, and how did I learn to speak Japanese? I think that's the questions you asked me.
Yes.
Well, so I quit high school to save up money to come to Japan. And I arrived when I had 2 months after I was 18.
Yeah.
And so that's March 27th in 1991, which is, 30 years ago now. It's nuts. And then you don't enter Japan as Japan when you become an uchideshi. You enter into a very, very small environment of young men trying to beat the shit out of each other, which has got absolutely nothing to do with the rest of Japan. So for us, and we didn't know that because we were purebred right into it. And we just thought this was the norm. But I could see after many years and being there, it's like, well, I don't speak like the normal Japanese. I don't act like the normal Japanese. There's this very strong hierarchy that goes on with the senpai kohai. And so I went right from the bottom right to the top in that area. It was very challenging, to say the least. The food was challenging. The fact that I had to sleep with 14 other guys in the same room, and most of them being Japanese. I didn't speak a word of Japanese at the time. It was very challenging. And then there was always that constant like fear of messing up on something, because the standard punishment for doing something wrong was 1,000 jumping squats. If you've ever tried that, you don't walk straight for a week after that. So I do not recommend messing up back in the day. I was advised by my Shihan here in Denmark, Shihan Umberto Boots. He actually flew with me to Japan to get me, settled in and everything, which was very kind of him. And he said, whatever you do, do not do what the other foreigners are doing. Do what the Japanese are doing, and you'll be all right.
Sound advice.
Yeah. So each year is different. I had like 8 or 9 senpais in my year above me, but there was only 2 above on the third year. So there was like 2 or 3. Then there was 8 or 9. And then we started 6. There was 6 of us. There was 4 Japanese. And then there was a guy from Australia called Todd. And then there was me. And I think about 2 or 3 weeks into the program, the first 3 Japanese had run away in the middle of the night, just escaping. They couldn't handle it. Todd was getting in trouble with Sosai for having bad manners. And he was just like, he was really a hard man to deal with when in those kind of situations, because he was very independent, had a very strong character, used to fight people on the streets when he would get drunk with his mates. And so he had this attitude of always going, shut the fuck up, man, I'll just knock you out. And so he would say that to me a lot, and he would say that to the other guys. He would say that to Ligo, or say that. He wouldn't say it to Judd because he knew he couldn't fuck with Judd. But he would always, this was his attitude, and we really knew that he didn't fit in this environment. So what I did one afternoon, I sat down with Mahashi, who was the same year as me, and I pulled out a dictionary, and I said, I literally pulled one word at a time out and said, very simple, I will do anything it takes. Please don't run away. I will help you in any way I can. I will share the work with you. I'll do everything I can, because remember, when you have 8 or 9 senpai that are always going, oi, do this, do that, you are running around literally all day doing stuff for someone. And Mahashi was like this. He was like at the verge of giving up, because he's like, there's no way I can handle 9 senpai telling me what to do 24/7. So I said, I'll do everything I can with you. And I did. And then a couple of weeks later, Todd gets kicked out for having a bad attitude. And so then it was just me and him for the next 3 years together. We became brothers too. I literally learned how to speak Japanese through him helping me. I learned how to read and write, very simple stuff. But I was at one point writing a journey in Japanese, just because I thought it would help me study. The journey had to be handed into Sosai on a daily basis. And Sosai would read the journey, and he would stamp it according to what he thought you wrote. There were 3 different stamps. There was one stamp that was perfectly stamped at the bottom or at the top. That wasn't really a big issue. We don't know the other thing there. Then there was a stamp that was turned upside down. Obviously, he didn't think that was a good entry. Then there was a stamp that would be sloppily put on. That was also not a good entry. But if he wrote something that he felt was really worth reading, he would actually go through the trouble and give you a double stamp. But there was different degrees of it. There was one could be crooked, or it could be perfectly straight. And so I had the honor of getting a double stamp once. And I still have that journey. So that's kind of cool.
That's amazing. And were you also exposing yourself to, like, say, Japanese radio? I mean, because Judd in his book talks about, like, there was no TV, but there was some limited access to radio. So did maybe listening to Japanese music help to kind of pick up the words you're learning and say, oh, I know this word, I know that word. Okay, now it's added to my toolbox.
No, I would study every day. I had a Japanese study book that I actually used every day. We would do a lot of drills, actually, amongst the foreigners. Nathan already spoke fairly good Japanese when I got there. He'd been studying for a while. He was also reading and writing a diary, which I thought was really cool. I wanted to do that too. Mokaram, oh my God, this guy, the French guy that got kicked out for being lazy, he spoke fluent Japanese.
Really?
Yeah, like fluent Japanese. And I think I learned and picked up more words from the way he spoke than from when the Japanese spoke. For some reason, it's easier for a foreigner to listen to another foreigner speak in Japanese and then pick up words from it. I cannot explain why, but it works for real.
I have to agree with you on that, because being from Quebec, there's 2 kinds of French, okay? There's the Quebec French, and there's the France French, okay? And I've heard both, okay?
Yeah.
But then there's that middle one. So if you're from, like, a former French colony, such as Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, it's much easier to pick up their French because everything is so clear. And it's like, it's kind of that mix of, like, the 2. So I totally agree, where it's like, there needs to be that middle ground where you're understanding it in a way that your brain registers the word.
And also I think, for example, Mokaram was speaking Japanese. He spoke very clear, and he also didn't use so many fancy words, you know. I don't know. It's just, I learned so much from him speaking Japanese. It's crazy. I was speaking fairly fluent, like, conversation level after about a year. And then I started teaching because I got my black belt. And then, I was already teaching classes in Japanese at the time. So yeah, I picked it up, the language, really well. Judd, not so well. I mean, he understood a lot more than he was able to speak, but he was always kind of studying, which is kind of funny. Sometimes he texts me and says, hey, how do you spell this even today? So I think that's kind of cool. He still knows how to say it. It's just like, how do you spell it?
Exactly. Oh, the writing is just a different animal. It's the same way in French, believe it or not, because my French speaking is way better now. And I like what you said, the French Uchideshi that was with you. What was his name? Because I don't want to mispronounce his name.
Mokaram.
Mokaram. So Mokaram, you said, was never using fancy words. And that's the key, I think, with any language, because when I was speaking with, when I went to go visit like Xian Pierre's dojo, one of the supporters I mentioned at the beginning, I was trying to, like, I was worried, should I use fancy words? And then one of his students said, listen, it's not about you using fancy words. You don't work for the government. You're not working in a high, facility. Just use simple words. If you can use that. And the trick is, as you said, with Japanese, you'll be understood and you'll be very successful with that.
Yeah, I mean, I also listen to Sosai talk to us every day. So there's this video of me teaching the Uchideshi class, which I can talk a little bit more about after. But there's this one scene where I'm standing and explaining how to do a mawashigiri, and I was like putting my foot up there on this Uchideshi's, like, right here, and then going, and I mess up my Japanese, but the way I'm talking in that video, it almost sounds like Sosai. Like my accent is like so copying Sosai. It's like the Japanese fighters used to tease me about that. And it was like, you're copying Sosai. It's like, no, I didn't try to copy Sosai. It was just the way I was inspired and taught, like, in the classes with Sosai. It just ended up coming up like that.
Did you ever have a chance to meet Xian Cameron Quinn while you were there? Because I know Xian Cameron, it was Sosai's interpreter. So were there periods like during your time being an Uchideshi where Cameron would come and you guys would, and you met with him and Jude maybe, or in any social situation?
I don't really, like, this is like all 30 years ago. So it's hard to say if I don't have a memory of us meeting that stands out, except for maybe one of the camps. I don't know. I don't really remember that. He could probably remember that better than I could. But I have a very long friendship with Sensei Xian Cameron. I have totally respect for this man. He's done amazing things on his YouTube channel. He still teaches and has now re-released his book, and I think it's amazing. You guys should definitely check it out.
I bought it, so that's someone I should have mentioned. I know we're already into the show, and I need to make a list of all the supporters for what we're doing here to grow the art. But Xian Cameron Quinn's second edition of the Budo Way of Masoyama, amazing book for any karateka or martial artist that wants to understand martial arts philosophy. Yeah,
I mean, I had the pleasure of receiving a copy. A good friend of mine from Canada actually sent me a copy, and Sensei Cameron actually signed it for me. I thought that was really neat.
Same here. He signed one for me. He is such an amazing individual. Like, and it's like, and it's such a privilege that we have primary sources like yourself, Xian Judd, Xian Cameron, that have actually been with Sosai, and like to talk about the man himself. And a lot of the things I hear is that he was like a fatherly figure to everybody. How did that impact you? Like, to know that you have someone that wants better for you and is always there for you. Unless it's a very subjective question, because I know some say, as you said, some didn't agree with Sosai and whatnot.
I don't know where that question came from, but for me, it was very simple. My mom and stepdad had just split up before moving to Japan. So I spent the last 6 months, just my mom and I living together. And when I went to Japan, I had that mindset, of totally becoming like the next Karate Kid. And like that mentorship was everything I'd ever dreamed of. For some reason, I had put everything into it. And the first time I met Sosai, I just knew this is the man. Like, I was shaking. It was quite an experience. But he told me a couple of things the first time I met him. And at that time, it wasn't Xian Cameron that was translating for Sosai. There was another gentleman in the dojo, David Bunt, who I'm also still friends with. It's amazing what the internet can do for you these days. He was translating, and I remember Sosai saying that you have now thrown away your country and your parents, and you've come all the way here to study and train with me. I want you to think of me as a father. I want you to think of me as a sensei. And if you ever have any questions, you can always come to me and ask. And that was the one thing he said. The second thing he says, but in exchange for this, I want you to also train very hard. I want you to get your black belt in 1 year. I want you to get your second dan in 2 years. And I want you to get a third dan in 3 years before you go back to Denmark. and I was very moved by these words. And so I completely took that to heart. But you got to understand, as an uchideshi, we're the closest to Sosai, not in the business sense, but in the karate sense. We had a special class with Sosai once a week, every Thursday from 1 o'clock to 2:30. It was an hour and a half. And Sosai came down and just taught us, just us. There's no one else allowed in this class. Mm-hmm. And then we had a black belt class on Fridays where Sosai would teach just black belts. As uchideshis, we were also allowed to that. I was literally, as a yellow belt, told I should go to that class from Sosai. Wow. He's like, he went in one Saturday morning and said, "Why were you not in class last night?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't know I should be there. I'm still yellow belt, right?" But of course, I just said, "Os," right? And that's what can you do? Yeah. And then the next week I showed up and he was like, And there was a general class that Sosai used to teach on Saturdays from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, which was called the Hoshukai. And anyone from any branch could come and join. And this class had 40, 50 people every week. It was packed. And then on Sundays, there was another black belt, brown belt class. That's also used to come and teach. So we trained with Sosai 4 times a week. Mm-hmm. And awesome. Then he would come in at 9:30. He would come in at about 9:20 to the dojo every day. And come down for the morning ceremony, which was at 9:30. We'd bang the drum. He'd come down from his office, and then we'd all stand to attention and listen to Sosai talk to us. And he would talk about anything from making sure to wash your underwear and clean your socks, to simple things as that. Also things like if you don't try hard enough, you will never get anything in life. It was like getting this little pep talk every day for 3 years, almost 3 years, until he went to the hospital for the last couple of months before he passed away. So, yeah.
Do you think? I mean, it's extremely. It's one of the greatest tragedies, his passing, that happened in 1994. But let's say, look, we can't say, shoulda, coulda, woulda. But if in a perfect world, he had he didn't get terminal, he didn't get ill and pass away, how do you think Kyokushin would have grown with him surviving, in the long run? It's a tough question, but with the internet coming in, how do you think Kyokushin could have expanded, if he had survived and lived on into his 80s and 90s?
Good question. I think around just the early 90s, the internet was starting. Mm-hmm. I remember buying a dial-up computer. It was just, trying to download a photo from Denmark it took 20 minutes. So yeah, I'm purely in that generation that remembers the before and after the internet world, which I kind of funny, actually. How would it have grown? I don't think it would have grown any bigger, to be honest, because a couple of reasons. One thing, I don't think the internet really has the power to attract more in that sense of mm-hmm. making it bigger. I think it is the individual dojo's jobs to attract more people, get more, mm-hmm. Clients in there. And I'm talking business. Mm-hmm. So, but I do think that a lot of the legends could have been dispatched with. But you got to remember, this is around the time, early 90s or early 90s, where K1 just started. And so we had the big first jump from Kyokushin was Andy Hogue, and Michael Thompson jumped on that one. And then Sam Gorko also went on it. And then eventually Francisco Filio, Glaube, me, we all went on that journey. But this was after Sosai passes away. And then while K1 and Andy Hogue was completely frowned upon, and, this, whatever you called it, abandoned, not abandoned, what's the word?
Nomad?
No, you got canceled.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
He got canceled from Kyokushin. So he's abandoned or not allowed to go watch any Kyokushin tournaments, not allowed to go in Kyokushin dojos or anything. And because Sosai said, professional fighting is not for Kyokushin. And as a young kid, when you see someone like Andy Hogue, I used to have a poster of him doing an axe kick above my bed, so I'd fall asleep and dream about that axe kick. I was a huge fan, and to see someone like that go into K1 and actually do good, it gave me hope and it gave me a lot of excitement. But I knew Sosai was nope, we don't do professional fighting. And so he expels, that's the word I was looking for. He expels all these Kyokushin fighters, right? And then he passes away. A couple years go by, and Francisco Filio was like, yeah, I'm like, got offered this really, really big deal to fight in the K1, and I signed a contract with some promoter from Germany. And then the head of the organization we were with, Matsui, just like completely flipped out and spent a lot of money on getting him out of that contract and then re-signing him to himself. And so instead of losing Francisco Filio, like, all the other guys, he just like made sure that he could keep people like us within the organization and make his money on top of it. Good and bad things about that. But yeah, what was I saying there? What was I talking about there? So I kind of lost the thread because
it was just about like, like how like where the internet, like, would have Kyokushin grown with like social media and the internet if Sosai had lived?
So something like the K1 started, and then there was also the Ultimate Fighting Championships that started. Like back in the day when Mark Kerr was like headbutting and like grinding out people's eyes and stuff.
Also, now he's a Kancho Jura Gerdo, one of the bad boys of Kyokushin too. The first ever UFC fight. He's the first ever, and I'm sure you've the stories of Jura.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is, the martial arts world was just hitting a time where everything was changing. Then Pride came, and then suddenly there was really a lot going on there. Bare knuckle fighting, underground fighting, everything just started around that time when Sosai passes away, around the early 90s. And then so you saw this massive development in and interest for what martial arts really was and is. So I don't think Kyokushin would get any bigger, to be honest. One thing, because it is considered, and I hate to say this out loud, outdated, because there's no boxing in it. It is also considered by many people outdated because there's no grappling and choking in it. For me, and I got to tell you this because most people don't realize this, I did a lot of MMA. I did a lot of, obviously, Muay Thai. I did a lot of kickboxing. I didn't like judo. If you can do gi or no gi, I prefer the no gi, but the gi skills of the jiu-jitsu is absolutely amazing. I just never got into it because I thought I was going to become an MMA fighter at one point. And during this time, after Sosai had passed away, while I was still teaching at Hombu, I would implement this kind of training into the training of the karate classes. So I'm probably the only teacher at Hombu that has ever done a MMA training in the gi at Hombu. No, because I truly believe you have to be an all-rounder. You have to, even if you choose Kyokushin as your bread and butter, or you have to know what boxing is. You have to know the understanding of the fighting skills of someone who's actually grappling. Can you close your eyes and feel where your body is? Are you able to flow with someone? Are you able to understand the importance of why it is to hold your hands up when someone's trying to bash you in the face? Because Kyokushin does not teach you this. And I know some of the best dojos that have created some of the best fighters out of Kyokushin, they all implement head striking training. So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
That's fine. Look, you have the right to say it. You've been there with the who's who. You've done it all yourself. So if anyone gets offended by it, at the end of the day, it's your opinion. That's the thing now. But then again, everyone has an opinion these days, and some are gonna want to be like, I don't. But you know what? You're entitled to it. I digress. But so. The 90s, as you said, this is a period of boom. Let's kind of take it away from martial arts because you're in Japan. And this is what I want to ask you, because I'm a 90s kid. Okay, so I'm born in 1991, and anime started coming out to North America at this time.
Yeah.
Like with early of Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon. You're a big. I saw you're a big Marvel guy. I don't know if you're into some anime series, but I wanted to ask you, when you were there, how did it feel to get everything before North America got it? Because you had Gundam, you had, which I'm very jealous of because I love Gundam, and I only found out about that in 2000, and I've been obsessed with it ever since. I digress, but tell me, what was it like to have access to all these series that North America would only get 5 years later?
Oh, fantastic question. Did you know that I hosted a show on NHK World called Imagination for 7 years? It was a show that we would only talk about animes and games.
Really?
Yeah. They ended it because of the Olympics. But yeah, 7 years I was the co-host of it with Chiaki Horan, who's a half Japanese, half Irish girl. Fantastic co-host, actually. But for me, I was a big Spider-Man fan my whole life. I used to buy the comic books here in Denmark when I was a kid and collect them. So going to Japan, I wasn't really that interested in the anime world, to be honest. I mean, I knew it was huge. Absolutely, you'll see any kid, in school or junior schools or whatever it is. They get these weekly Jump. They're called Jump magazine.
Shonen Jump, yeah, they brought it to North America.
Shonen Jump, yeah. So everyone was reading these, and there's most of the stories that are in the weekly Jump, like they become like a tankobon. This is like books that they sell them as later on. But they start there. I never really got into it, except for the Ghibli movies, to be honest. I saw the first anime I saw in Japan was Cagliostro no Shiro. Mm-hmm. So it's a Lupin Sensei anime about the castle of Cagliostro. And I saw it, I think, in my second year as an uchideshi, because we used to have one TV set down in the kitchen that the second and third year uchideshi were allowed to watch for a couple of hours on Sunday nights. And so we had a VHS player, and some senpai had rented this anime, and we had like not curfew, but we, as the younger uchideshi, had to be in bed by 9. So I remember watching like for an hour of this, an hour and a half movie, going, wow, I don't understand a word of it, but it is absolutely breathtakingly cool. And so there was like, yeah, got to go off to bed now. I was like, shit, I want to watch to the end. But yeah, that was my first experience with the anime there.
Nice. And yeah, like you said too, you did a show with like games too. So this is something I wanted to show you. I mean, this is a big game in Japan, but it's a niche game here. It's called Fire Emblems. I don't know if you've heard of this series. It's like a Japanese strategy game.
Hi. Yeah.
It's one of I mean, you must have had, and when video games were coming out, you must have had a gold mine to play Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, all those. Like, I envy you. Like, I have to be honest. Like, you must have had such a blast trying this game. You're like, not for me. Next one. Oh, Super Mario. Next. Street Fighter 2. Oh, perfect. Tekken. I get Tekken before the West does. Oh yeah, I'm loving Japan now.
No idea, man. They were arcades, like game centers back in the 90s, right? And so you'd like one coin, which is like $1, right? And it costs $1 to play a game. They would have Tekken machines lined up, like 15 machines, and you would play against each other. And it was like, when you get someone who's good in there, he just doesn't leave the seat, because it's like everyone comes in and wants to challenge him. It was like, I spent hours, man, watching them just like battle it out in there. I never really got good at the fighting games. Mm-hmm. I thought that fighting was what I did, and I didn't want to do fighting games. But yeah, I remember we started for gaming, because I love gaming. But I wouldn't consider myself a real gamer. Mm-hmm. Like, I have a friend, my friend Paul, very good friend of mine in Japan. He does a lot of my YouTube stuff together now, and actually shoots and edits the Tokyo Talks podcast that I have. He is a gamer. Like, he understands gaming. Like, for real, he will probably have a 10-hour conversation with you about any of those games you just mentioned. He understands it, remembers it, even like knows how to play the music and can recreate everything. And so it's really cool. But for me, I started on Super Famicom with the Donkey Kong games.
Yes.
Simple stuff. I love them. Then they came up with Super Donkey Kong, and that was really cool. And that evolved into the first PlayStation. I went straight to PlayStation, obviously, because they had some really cool games. The first game that I remember I got completely like lost in was the first Tomb Raider. Have you played that?
I played Tomb Raider 2 on PC. I remember getting Tomb Raider number 2 for the PC, but for me, I'm more of the games I play were obviously fighting, but RPG. But I know Tomb Raider. It's a very popular series.
Man, Tomb Raider 1, like the first series of that game, was strikingly difficult. Like, for real. It had because you could do all these back flips and front flips, and you could jump to the side and this and that. But the way you had to get through the levels, like, you would have to like inch up to the edge of it. And if you got a little bit further, you'd fall and die. If you were a little bit short, you would fall and die on the other side because you wouldn't land over there. So I spent like hours and hours on like trying to get it right. But I really had a good experience with that game.
It's like the same for me with, then Grand Theft Auto came out, and then like that's my generation's game, like number 3.
Yeah, I could see that. I never got into that.
No. My stepbrother loved it. Like he would like play it, and then I made the mistake of one day erasing all the data he had. Like he was
pissed.
angry. Oh my god, yeah, he was, and like it was bad. But look, that's it is what it is. But that's the thing; it becomes an addiction, and then like you forget about life, and it's a. But that's what you got. Everything in moderation is key. Just don't go. But look, some people love it, and I'm not going to judge, but I can't.
I think gaming is I think I'm not into online gaming at all.
Me neither.
I think gaming is not necessarily a bad thing. I think that when you see the extremes, it's like, with anything in life, when you go completely all in, like, for example, my journey with martial arts was too extreme. So it was not healthy. Hence I have 2 replaced hips, right? But gaming as a hobby and as a fun thing to do, even for young people, and I'm like 48, I'm almost 50, I still play games. I got, like, I think 2 years ago, I got completely lost inside the Nintendo, Breath of the Wild. It was just like, holy crap. I played the first time I played that and finished it. I never got up on a horse. I never rode anything. I just walked through the whole game. I just love being in that world.
Oh, it's the Zelda game, right? Breath of the Wild.
Zelda. Yeah. Zelda, yeah.
Zelda's an iconic game, man. That's like I played. I could never beat it, but that's why I went off with like Fire Emblem, Golden Sun, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest. Those are my games. Like I just love the character development, and then like it's because like the psychological side of it is like you're seeing the character grow, and it's like that's what I love about those games. Like it's
but the same in Zelda,
Yes.
when you get, like, there's some downloadable content at the end of it, you can, like, fight to get this motorcycle inside there. That's just like, whoa, that's just mind blowing. But yeah, I wouldn't consider myself a good gamer because, I'll see my daughter, who's now 17. I'll see her play some of the monsters in that Zelda game. And it's just like, she's got such great patience and timing and everything. Me, I'm just going to go in there and hack and slash away at it.
Nice. I see. So I want to ask you about the K1 period, so Kancho Ishii comes in 1993. What was that period like? Because like I know Kancho Ishii was part of Kyokushin. Then he splits off, goes to form his own thing, and he makes his own kanji. I don't know that. Like, look, I don't. Like,
wait, I'm going to tell you the truth on this one.
Tell me the story, please do. I want to hear it from you.
So Ishii Kancho, before he was a Kancho, he had created a dojo in Osaka. And it was actually, and they were doing Kyokushin. They were wearing Kyokushin dogis and everything. They were teaching Kyokushin. And I think he had like 300 or 400 students. He was very successful. And then one day, Sosai calls him up and says, hey, you're using our dogis and signs and everything, but you're not a member of the organization. What's going on here? And that's when he broke away.
So he was,
and that's when he made Seito Kaikan.
So he was kind of doing some fuckery.
Shady as hell back in the day. He has been shady his whole life. I think he's hilarious where he's gotten through and what he's done in his life to get to where he is today. I actually really like him. He's always been very kind to me. But yeah, so he got kicked out of an organization that he wasn't part of. So he made Seito Kaikan. Yeah.
This is part of a movie. I can't believe I'm hearing this. This is like you could not have written a better script. This could be like a mini series or like one of those Netflix like documentaries on sports. Like someone needs to pick this up. Like, I mean, wow. Like,
yeah,
he was using Sosai's dogis and the kanji.
He's a huge fan, by the way. He's a huge fan of Sosai.
Okay. And so he forms K1 and he forms Seito Kaikan. What was it like? And what was that early?
Seito Kaikan first.
Seito Kaikan, that's it. Yes. So Seito Kaikan comes out, and he's doing those tournaments, like the Seito tournaments. It's like little Seito logo. What was that? What was that like? What did that cause a lot of like anger, like in the Kyokushin scene, or did it kind of motivate the Kyokushin guys to say, okay, let's see what we can do against his guys?
That's a good question. I mean, I was very young at the time, but you got to understand the kickboxing scene in Japan, like back in the 70s and in the 80s and stuff like. They were, I think it was the 70s. There was this kickboxer called Sawamura. I forget his full name now, but and they ended up making animes about this guy. He was so famous. He was on primetime TV, live TV. He was like the Japanese Muhammad Ali with kickboxing in Japan. And so he was huge, like it was huge. So there was a market for this. So the people that had seen him fight when they were your age or younger, like in their teens or 20s when they were young, those were the same fans of fighting that existed. Now they had children though. So there was a base for something like that. And so he started doing these strange, world championships, and he got his hands on Andy Hoog really early on with money. He offered him money to fight, and Andy Hoog wanted to be famous, wanted to have money. Obviously, everyone wants to have fame and money if you can. And it was really frowned upon looking at it. But there was also this really big, kickboxing world that had a way bigger presence in Japan at the time. And it still has. K1 in Japan now is gotten, it went like this, and now it's gotten to a really strong point again. But it's not just K1. Then there's, Shin Nihon Kickboxing. There's Nantoka Nantoka. There's like a whole bunch of organizations that basically have kickboxing fights 2-3 times a week down in Korakuen. There's one specific hall, which is just around the corner, actually attached to the Tokyo Dome, that does pro wrestling. It does a lot of pro wrestling. It does a lot of boxing, and then it does all the kickboxing. So it is basically packed out all year round. Like you can walk in there on any day and you'll see someone beating the shit out of each other for sure. And so that kickboxing scene back in the day, they had, because this is 90s, right? So you had magazines. It wasn't online yet. All you got was your monthly or your weekly. I think it was weekly magazines that came out with martial arts talks. And it was like Gong Kakutogi, which was the biggest one. It was gong as in a gong when you hit the gong. And Kakutogi means martial arts. So the gong of the martial arts was the name of one very big magazine. And then there was there was a specific magazine just for pro wrestling. And then there was another magazine also that also did it up. I forget the name of the other one. And all these martial arts magazines were on the front covers, is like, what is the trend of the fighting in these days? And it was literally never a Kyokushin guy. So Sosai made up for that by creating his own a magazine called the Power Karate. So the Power Karate, and that went on for many, many, many years. And it was just for Kyokushin. So we used to have a specific magazine just for Kyokushin. And I think the only time I made the front cover of that was when I won the K1 Japan. So I wasn't really the trending guy. I wasn't like Francisco Filio or Andy Hoog or anything like that. But yeah, it was an interesting time for sure with the different magazines and stuff. I'm not quite sure where the question came from, but I kind of got sidetracked.
That's okay. That's what I love about the show. As I said, it's a free flowing show. Like, as I say, I like, that's what I love about it. Cause then that's what makes the feedback better from these episodes. And I said today, like, I made myself a promise that when I get Sensei Nicholas on, I got to make sure like it's going to be it's among my masterpiece episodes, as I like to call it. So
record the time where we're at now, because
sure.
No, I'm going to need to plug in my Mac.
Okay. So right now it's about 56 minutes in. So guys, don't worry. Nicholas is just charging his laptop because batteries are not perfect. But don't worry. We're still going. It's still going. It's good. I got it here. So we're about 56 minutes in recorded, I'd say.
Yeah, I hope I don't mess this up.
Don't worry. Done. Perfect. It's good.
There you go.
Exactly. That's what I love about it. It's not like we have like some like corporate media head being like, you gotta like it's gotta be perfect. No, it's my show. So that's how it works. So, so when you made the K1 magazine, of Japan, because or the karate magazine, as you were just saying,
yeah,
you've been around them all, like and one of the others, so you've been around the big names. Michael Thompson. This is someone I'm curious about, the Black Panther.
Yeah.
How it's one thing to watch him on YouTube, but to see him up close, how his technique must have been like phenomenal to watch for how good he was.
So man, he's such an inspirational guy. It's unbelievable. The year before I went to Japan, he was invited on our summer camp here in Denmark, and he came and taught us some fantastic, mind-blowing things. I will never forget that camp. That was so inspirational. His footwork and his timing and his skill and just everything about the way this man moved was beautiful. Like, it was just beautiful. And I got super inspired by it. People like Gary O'Neill definitely got inspired to move like him. And Gary just took it to the next level, in my opinion. But I mean, for his time, for what he thought of fighting, this is his mindset for fighting, because he's up against, Michel Bedell, 2-meter tall giant. In the European Championships. There's Andy Hoog, and he's beating these guys. And it's like, he's not a big man. Like, he's about my size, but he's not even 100 kilos. He's like maybe 85 or 87 at the most. I mean, and how is he fighting in the heavyweights and still being able to, win the tournaments? It was just unbelievable. He didn't do so well in kickboxing, unfortunately. I don't think he liked it so much. I think it was kind of forced upon him. I don't know the truth about that though, but yeah, his karate style was absolutely amazing. Michael Thompson, wow. I haven't heard that name in a while.
It's very sad though, because KRT and I believe Marshall Way, Scott, if I get it wrong, but I know Scott has mentioned it to me. We all been trying to get in touch with him, but he lives in apparently Ireland, and he doesn't really. It's one of the sad things when they leave the art, they just kind of want to be like, yeah, we've moved on, I don't think I can offer anything, because they have reached out to him through contacts, but he's like, I don't think I have anything to offer. But they say, we're not asking you to teach, we just want to talk to you. But sometimes I guess some legends, they kind of, as you're saying before we recorded, some of them, they just want to be left, left alone, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I mean, but it's respectable. He was really part of a very special era of Kyokushin where I almost feel like my period was like the next generation of it, but also there was a period before that, and I feel there's always these specific kind of fighters that are up there rivaling each other, and the periods last, anything from 4 to 8 years. I think the world tournaments are where they really it's like people retire after world tournaments. But like someone like me, for example, I can only really speak for myself, but I know that I never wanted to become a teacher. It was never my aspiration to become a teacher. It was always a hobby for me. And I hate saying that because I made a very good living off it for 20 years. And I've been able to travel many, many places in the world also because of it. But it was always just a hobby for me. And I say that in the most caring way, because when you define what a hobby is, it is something you enjoy doing, and you spend as much time as you can on it because you enjoy it, because it's enjoyable. Right. When it becomes a job or it becomes, I'm going to go back to the cult analogy, like the higher up you get into the hierarchy in that triangle, the more politics gets involved. And then it's suddenly not a hobby anymore. Then it's not fun. And for me, it had to be fun. Otherwise, I didn't want to do it.
That makes sense. So I wanted to ask you, because you did say, you said that you made a good living off it for 20 years. I love asking this now because with today, people want to be becoming better with their money and finances. What advice can you give to a young up and coming, whether it's a karate student that wants to become a teacher? I know you didn't become one, but they want to become a CrossFit coach and own their own gym. What's their advice to them for you on how they can on how they should save their money, and then when they're ready to invest it? What advice can you give any up and comer, young fitness trainer / business owner to succeed like you have?
My advice would be to don't lose yourself in the training, or don't lose yourself in the aspect of thinking that if you just do this one thing right, everything else will come along. Sosai used to tell us, when you're young and you're training, you don't need money, you don't need women. All you do is focus on fighting and training to fight. And if you get strong, all these things will come to you. So I firmly believe that. And when they did come to me, I didn't know what to do with it. So I wasted it all. So I would have wished that I'd had a mentor who could have sat me down and said, okay, look, you've done the training, you're strong enough now. I didn't have a plan B, by the way. There was no plan B for me. It was all in. And then the children started coming, and I needed more money, and I needed to get stronger and fighter. It's a long story, but if I'd had someone mentoring me properly that would have said, okay, look, My mom used to say this to me. I never listened, unfortunately. You should be able to go to school, or at the same time, you can become a world-class fighter. You should be able to get a proper education, or you should be able to get advice from someone. You can learn anything about how to invest your money if that's what you want to learn about through the internet. It's all free. There are so many podcasts out there telling you what you can do or what you should do. I grew up in Denmark, unfortunately. And I say that because in Denmark, you don't necessarily need to worry about your retirement. You pretty much, your whole education system, your dentist and your doctors and everything is free until you're 18. And then they even pay you money to go to university. So, the whole concept of having to save up for your children to send them to university for me was so foreign, I didn't understand it. And so I have 3 daughters. They're all, not all, but they're 22, 20, and 18 this year. And so they don't have that fallback that I should have given them. Which I would recommend everyone does. Learn how to save 10 to 15% of anything you make in your life forever. Every time you get a paycheck, put it into savings, just because it's not your money. And one day when you have something that you needed for buying a house, buying an education, or actually when you need it for retirement funding, you don't want to work until you're like 90 years old, then you have it.
Right.
And I think that 15% margin is very, very smart. I started doing that some years ago. And I think it's the right thing to do. It's just like always put something aside and don't worry about that. Forget about that money. Put it aside and then forget about it.
Live off less than you make, obviously. That's the principle.
Yeah, but I didn't when I was young. I mean, and then there's taxes. You got to understand taxes. The Japanese tax system is absolutely upside down. It drives me nuts. And I'll explain it to you because it's a funny thing to understand. So here I am, Nicholas Pettas, karate guy, happy days. I get an offer for a fight in K1, and I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was $35,000 US for my first fight. Which for me was like at the time, I was living in a 1-room apartment with a kid, and my salary was $1,500 a month. Mm-hmm. And my wife didn't work at the time. My ex-wife, she didn't work at the time. So that's what 3 of us were living for. So I had really no money. Like I said, I was all in. It was just about becoming the strongest I could and just keep going for that, and regardless of the cost of it. So when I get that money, right? So then I make some money, and then suddenly, like, that's more than a whole year's salary, by the way. It's almost 2 years' salary for me. So I get all that money. That's exciting, right? In Japan, you get taxed for how much money you made 2 years ago. Don't ask me why. I don't understand it. So that next year is happy, right? I still have a little bit of money. We can play around. We go out for dinner and stuff like that. And 1 year goes by, and I'm still getting taxed for what I used to earn. Then the second year comes, and then suddenly they hit you with a tax bill that is bigger. And I was like, what the fuck do I do with this? Right? So I'm still on the same salary. I only got 1 fight in the K1. I didn't fight for another 2 years because I wasn't good enough. At that time, I went all in training kickboxing. But so that's what a small taste. I should have really listened to the red flags that came up there, but I didn't. And then I won the Japanese Grand Prix in 2001, and I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point. And then I break my leg in 2002.
Oh.
So in 2002, in June, I break my leg, right? So I'm not walking without I'm not actually walking for the first 6 months. I couldn't put weight on it, living on a wheelchair. Obviously, I'm not working, I'm not fighting, so I'm not making any money. So come 2003, then I get taxed for what I made 2 years ago. And that was my highest grossing year from 2001, right? So they are fucking me on taxes in 2003. And that goes on to 2004. So once you start this spinning wheel of taxes, right, it keeps going. I was in so much debt, it's not even funny. So be careful of taxes. Just understand that when you earn more, you pay more. It's that simple.
Exactly. No, that's so true. So you gotta make sure, that's why you say get a mentor, find someone that's like a CP, what's called chartered professional accountant. Like my late father was a chartered accountant. So I would be like, go to a CA, but now you have to say the CPA because it's professional. But make sure, you need someone.
I have good friends. For real, good friends should talk about these things over beers.
They should. Oh, I do with my coach. Like I do it with my coach all the time because he's like one of my good friends, and like we talk about like you got to save, you got to invest. Like he says, you got to live like an immigrant to a degree. He's like don't get caught up in materialism. And since when I moved out finally of like where I was living with my stepmom, because before I was like whatever, it's like I don't have to pay much here, like other than I help with the groceries. You start seeing how much you pay for rent, and then you're like you see the other two, you say, oh okay, so I gotta like I don't really need materialism. I don't need much. It's like it's an illusion. That's what you say. Save 15% and find people and good friends that help you stay on track.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Got to give a big shout out to my friend Charlie for that. Because Charlie, who I work with, like she's like, and not an expert, but she's into numbers and all that. So she was always telling me she's always telling me, she's like, I'm investing in this today. And she's like pushing me to like save and then invest. So you need friends like that.
Have you ever heard of that? I mean, I think Bob Sapp told me about this when I was like 36 or something, or 35. And I was like, fuck, I should have started. I think if you start at 26 years old and you save, I think it's $100 a month, and you put that into savings, by the time you retire, it's $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some scheme. I forget. I think it's something that simple. Just $100 a month. You put it away, and every month you do that until you're like 65, and then you have $1 million worth. I think it's something that don't correct me if I'm wrong. Please leave comments below.
Yeah, exactly.
I need it. But what I'm doing now is I'm saving a lot more on purpose. Every month I'm like putting away as much as I can, just because. Right, just because I never did, and now I feel I'm getting older and I need it.
You don't look old though. I'm not, but like you age like fine wine. But I agree with you too in a sense because, for example, like now you see everyone lining up for the next like iPhone or like the next winter coat, and then they're like, I don't have any money. It's like, well, maybe if you didn't spend it on debt and got in debt to pay off the interest, you would have had money for other things. Like I have an iPhone 8 Plus. I don't plan on changing it anytime soon. So I mean, you got to, if it works, why change it if it's not broken, right?
Yeah, that too. Okay, so I started listening to a lot of audiobooks over the last year. I got engaged with a fantastic American Colombian girl. Her name is Angela.
Congrats.
Thank you. And so we listen to audiobooks together, and she loves to study, not just history, but history too. And so one of the books that we listen to together is called Let My People Go Surfing.
Okay.
And it's by Yvonne Chouinard, and I highly recommend you guys listen to this book, especially you. You can either read it or listen to it. It comes as an audiobook. It's the person who created the brand Patagonia. Mm-hmm. So Patagonia was one of those brands out there that I had absolutely no idea about. I didn't understand it. And I walked into a store one time and I thought, holy crap, everything is so expensive in here. And I had absolutely no relationship to why. And I didn't think it was super cool. It looked like something you could wear if you're going to go for a hike in the woods, whatever. Anyway, when you hear the story or listen to the story and understand it, then you will understand what they're doing. And they are literally making the better place by telling you to buy less, by telling you to use less, by telling you to fix the things that are broken. So if you have a zipper on your jacket that gets messed up, you just take it in and they will fix it for you for free.
Exactly. Or jeans, like get them sewn up.
But it is about everything. The whole supply chain is like scrutinized on how do we make the world a better place, and they have really done it. They've really done it. It is an amazing brand. I can't praise it enough, to be honest. I wish I could create something similar in my business, and we've done changes. We've done fantastic changes, like getting rid of plastic bottles to changing the environmental footprint that we have, stuff like that. And you can all do something to make it better, and stuff like that for sure. Less is better.
It really is. I feel like I'm happier with what I have. Like I recently, like for example, at my work, where I won a bunch of Amazon gift cards and I used it to buy a bunch of books just to like stay sharp. I don't watch TV. The only thing I bought recently was the James Bond Blu-ray collection because I'm a big Bond fan. So
that would be cool.
Oh, I love it. No, like I saw the latest one. I mean, I'm gonna go off on a little tangent here. I'm a big Bond fan because there's that picture of Sosai with Sean Connery. So James Bond did Kyokushin. I'm meant to do Kyokushin. I grew up on Bond. You could ask me about Star Wars. I'll be like, if you ask me about Bond, I'll be like, okay, this scene happens here that I remember. You can, I'm a savant with Bond. Okay. But I digress. But yeah, that's how it is. And I don't need much, but I bought those books and it's like, I'm reading them and it's like, you have conversations about what you learn and it sticks in your brain. So I see what you're doing with your fiance now and how that's helping you.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had some great books that we've gone through together, and then we can talk about them, discuss them, which is really cool. Like the first one that we listened to together was Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, who is
I've
the
heard
man
of it.
he created Nike, and it's just like this fantastically well written story, not story, but like, story, and also fantastically well read. Like the actor that reads it is, it's amazing. Like that one just blew me away. I was like, oh yeah, now I want more, a lot more.
Amazing. So what do you hope happens? I mean, now, like, you have your goal set for you with what you're doing now as you get older, but as like everything's reopened pretty much up now, what's the goal for you with like your CrossFit gym and for 2021 and beyond? And what have you learned from what this past 2 years have taught you in the industry?
Well, people need to stay fit and strong is something that I've learned. And so I believe that CrossFit or any fitness industry that gets the formula right has a fantastic chance of growth if that's what they're looking for. I was very satisfied with my box as it was for the longest time. I literally opened that place up and said, I'm going to love these members more than my children. That was my goal. And it worked. It worked very well. Not even knock on wood, because it's got nothing to do with knocking on wood. It's got something to do with hard work and dedication. And so over the last couple of years, what I've seen and also experienced is that I wanted and needed to try and see if it was possible to take a step away a little bit to become an actual business owner. And I hired a fantastic head coach who used to own a box, but moved to Japan and wanted to support my box. And I was like, and he kept pushing me in a direction that I didn't like. Eventually, over the last year or so, I've become comfortable enough with him that I gave him the bank card and the code to the bank so that he can wire the salaries this month.
Amazing. That's
I have
amazing.
not stood on the floor and taught a class all year. So January this year, it's like I stepped away and it's like, okay, now I'm going to be an owner. What are the next goals? That's a good question. We want expansion, actually. We believe that the formula we have and the system that we're running is so vastly different from the other CrossFit boxes in Japan. Plus, CrossFit is tiny in Japan. So there's as much growth possibilities if you have cash in hand to go out and invest and open up more boxes. We have a pretty solid 10-year plan and a pretty solid goal to get there. And we're working on that for sure. And then I am also working on a different project with my fiance. We're hoping to be involved with children's education in Japan.
That's amazing. Oh man, like you have my support always. I mean, if you really want to be successful, start educating children young with good values, and then that way it's like a tree planting the trees, and it's like the long term. It's the long term mindset of I think one thing I can tell from you is you share the Japanese business mindset of it's not about trying to make a quick buck or like get profits right away in America. It's like this is a long game. It's like that too with my podcast. Like I play the long game, you play the long game, and that's what makes it more fun, and you enjoy doing it more.
I like that. So I'll tell you a long game that I've played. I'm not sure if this is actually something I should be sharing, but it could be fun to listen to. So I wanted a divorce for many years. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. We have 3 fantastic, beautiful daughters together, but we just did not see eye and eye on anything. She's Japanese. She doesn't speak English. So long story short, I wanted to get divorced. I didn't know how to get out. So I started figuring this out in my head. How does one get out of a marriage that you don't want to be in? Because I've promised her when I did get the divorce that I would take care of her forever. So that means not just child support. It means support for her as a person. And she's not worked a day since she's 26. So my plan was first accumulate enough money or be able to get a loan from the bank, buy a big house. When the children start moving out of the house, keep the house, rent it out to some other family, on the rent income, be able to pay for the wife and get her set up somehow so that it all pays for itself. And at the end of the day, I can always sell the house and I can retire. That plan started many, many years ago. So it took me, because when I was fighting, I could never get a loan in the bank. It was, your job is high risk. We can't give you a loan. I said, yeah, but I have capital I can put as a down payment to buy a house. And says, you can't get a loan. Your job is high risk. And obviously it was. I broke a leg. I got the fake hip. I got broke a nose. I broke an arm, right? So that made sense. So when I finally got a job in the year before we opened the box, I was working as a foreign liaison for a beauty business, actually. So I spent a year there, and then I studied CrossFit on the side. I got that ready. I wrote a business plan, got the finance for that somehow. And then we opened up the shop. And then, so here starts the plan that had gone years ago. I get divorced around that time. And then I don't have enough financials. I don't have enough steady income to still get a loan. Still, the loan plan is not working. It takes me 5 years to get to the point where I have enough accumulated tax payment slips and financial records that I could show that I'm now a stable businessman. It took me 4 years. And then in the 5th year, I found a house that was worthwhile if I could get it. There were 3 other people bidding on the house. Long story short, I ended up getting the house, and it was just tequila shots that night. So now 4 years later, we're in a situation where my first daughter has moved out. So now I'm thinking of either moving, selling, and buying something else, or actually sticking to the original plan, having someone else rent the house and then get them into something smaller. Eventually, it'll be just my wife and it'll all take care of itself. That's a long plan.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. And it's a nice way too, because divorce can be very messy, but I mean, look, kudos to you for being a gentleman about it. And, I hope more men can look at that example, because even then, it's a very personal thing. I took a psychology of law class, and the psychology professor said the worst kind of cases are the divorce cases because of the parent and the kid. And you never know if the kid has special needs. It makes it even more difficult because the kid could like one parent more, but this parent is the one that could support them and whatnot. But I mean, good on you, really good on you for looking at the bigger picture here. And not many men or people in general would do that. So I really want to give a
Thank you. And I think it's a fantastic plan. I think it's pretty awesome. Because I just found out a couple of weeks ago where I was because my daughter moved out, my oldest daughter moved out, and I was like, maybe I should check into and see if this is going to work out, because the mortgage is way lower than what you can rent it for. So it will pay by renting it out to someone. It will pay for the next place where she lives in. And if I can get another loan to get that one, then it's just accumulating more wealth at the end of the day. So when I do pass away, then I have something to give to my children.
Amazing. Yeah. So I guess we'll conclude it here and the message is be a good human, think the long term, and save your money and invest it wisely. So Sensei, first of all, before I ask you, where can people connect with you? I had to ask this. I tried buying your book. It's not available. How can I get a copy of it? Because it's become rare. I got Cameron's book. I got Judd's book, The Young Lions. I want your book.
Yeah. Thank you very much for those words. I stopped selling it at one point because I thought it was too personal. Mm-hmm. And then last year during the lockdown, I decided to do it as an audiobook. Mm-hmm. But then it's not an audiobook. It's like a director's cut where I go off script so many times. I don't know. I mean, if I want to sell the book as an actual physical copy, again, I would have to have it re-edited because reading it and going through it, I could see that it needs to be cleaned up a lot. And I'm not the kind of guy that will clean it up. I recently saw someone was selling it on eBay in England for €370. I was like, holy crap, that's just ridiculous. But you can listen to most of the book on the YouTube channel that I have called The Tokyo Show.
Okay.
And if you want to listen to the rest of the book, you could become a patron, which is it's also called Patreon/The Tokyo Show, where you buy into a small tier, a couple of dollars for a cup of coffee or more if you want to be a super tomodachi. I call my friends the tomodachis, which means friend. And then I'm slowly releasing the rest of the book. I just uploaded the chapter 17 yesterday. So I think it's the first 10 or 12 chapters that you can watch on YouTube. And then after that, it's just basically for the people supporting it. And so it's going to slowly be released, one chapter a month over the next, probably year or so. Okay. And so that's how you can get it. Some people still have the book. I mean, some people sell it. I don't know. It's just not available right now. I used to have copies, and then I would send them out, all over the world. But now with COVID, even sending a book is absolutely impossible. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Yep. Took a long time to get Cam's book.
But what I am doing now, and it's got nothing to do with martial arts, but I had a Japanese book that was titled Train to Be 100. So I'm having that translated now, and I will publish a book about training and what it is to start fitness in your 40s, in your silver age. And so that will be come out at one point.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know. It's just, I get really emotional about karate, and sometimes I feel it's a positive thing, and other times I feel super protective and super like defensive about some things. I did get invited to Sensei Cameron's camp in Australia in 2023. So I'll probably put on the dogi one more time and, throw a few kicks around or something.
Awesome. I'm happy to hear that. So where can people connect with you on social media?
Social media. Well, I mean, I'm on Facebook mostly. I don't know, YouTube for sure. Don't send me a friend request, because I get literally, even today, 5 to 10 requests on a daily basis, and I can't befriend someone that I actually don't know. But you can follow me. So if people want to follow me, they're welcome to do that. I'm not really interesting. I post a lot of food shots and stuff like that, or pictures of my brother. They can also follow me on Instagram, where I have Nicholas Pettas underbar at the end of it. It's the official one. It's also very small. I'm not really that big on social media, to be honest. I'm started YouTube channel last year to see, mostly for fun, and then it became a really cool project. And now I've partnered up with some other guys that are really good at YouTube, and we've actually just started shooting on a brand new channel, which is not the Tokyo Show, and it's a food channel. So
nice.
That's going to be released soon enough.
Amazing. I really want to thank you for taking the time. I mean, I thought I'll be like a 15-minute episode, but then there's some guests you have where like the chemistry just clicks instantly, and this was one of them. But you're in the masterpiece episodes, because when I found out that you said yes and Joanne helped connect us, I was like Joanne was like, don't let this one get away. She's like, do not. Like, she said it in a very nice but stern way, just to say, because I want to see the show. I love doing this. I love networking with people like yourself and the others. And who knows? I mean, you have a supporter in me now, and I really to hear those stories about the early days. I mean, you've seen it all, and I just want to say it was. I appreciate it. Like, you are a primary source of history while being alive.
It's very honoring and humbling to hear those words. I have actually had the pleasure of traveling a lot and going on a lot of camps, and people always ask me stories about the old days, and I have some really cool stories actually. But they're mostly best heard in actual person.
Yes,
because you'll see the emotion more, and you'll understand the passion behind the words. But I mean, I think these podcasts are a fantastic source of promoting each other. And, Kyokushin is wonderful. I spent 25 years of Kyokushin, and the first 10 of those years were the best years of my life. They made me the man I am today. So with that, I would like to say thank you guys for watching, and hope to see you somewhere else.
Sounds good. Guys, make sure to like, share, subscribe to the Drew Experience, but also more importantly to the guest today. This is Kyokushin royalty. He is the last of the original Uchi Deshi. So please support him, share his stuff, because we got to keep it relevant no matter what. I mean, so support. It's more about my guest today, so support him, and then we all grow together.
Yes. Us.